So the Pentagon has just done something. I suppose its goal was to kind of clear up some of the confusion around AATIP, confusion that it itself created, by the way. If you remember, the Pentagon put out, well, people put out multiple videos. Then the Pentagon says it wasn't ours. Then the Pentagon later says, okay, these were ours. Then the Pentagon put out their own videotapes. Well, the same thing was taking place with Elizondo, Lou Elizondo, when he first came out. Some of the Pentagon people say, we don't know who that guy is. He's not us. And then you find out, yes, he is the director of AATIP. And even when AATIP, the program itself, and whether or not the program was studying UFOs, or whether the purpose of the program was to study UFOs. So the Pentagon puts out a document that basically explains what AATIP was, when it was in operation, what it was studying. And the stuff that it was studying was so far out there, it was phenomenal. The Pentagon is arguing that the goal of the program wasn't UFOs, even though UFOs were being studied in the context of the program. That they were looking into the future, thinking, what are the technologies that are going to be basically on the battlefield of the future, and that type of stuff. And within the context of that, having all of these reports and all of this research that was being done in that direction. This is supposed to clear stuff up. This does the opposite. Now, Elizondo, who was director of the program, is saying something different. And even in context of how long the program lasted. And so I'm going to show you what the document and the statement that these guys just released, Susan Go, and I am going to show you what Lou Elizondo has said about the program and when it and how far it went. Some of the stuff does line up, meaning when Lou is given some of the speeches he's given, well, yeah, some of the stuff does coincide with what they were studying, those type of things. And the reports that are released is not entirely the issue. The issue is more so, was AATIP specifically to study UFOs and the threat posed by, let's say, unidentified flying phenomena in our skies? And how long did it last? How long did it last? I'm going to show you the Pentagon statement. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I thank you for allowing me to do it. So, the Pentagon is trying to explain itself. It's trying to explain itself. And it's saying, no, the program was not specifically to study UFOs, even though it did utilize UFO reports during its research. That's what they were saying. So this is what they release, and this is Black Vote. Black Vote is the one that's releasing this. So Susan Go gives this out. Now, apparently, this has gone out to Black Vote said they sent it to him, but they also say that apparently it went to other media organizations. It's unclear how many received the document. But the purpose of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program was to investigate foreign advanced aerospace weapon system applications with future technologies projected over the next 40 years, and to create a center of expertise for advanced aerospace technologies. The goal was to help understand the threat posed by unconventional or leap-ahead aerospace vehicles and technologies that could have national security implications for the United States. All right. The program commenced in the fiscal year of 2008 with $10 million appropriated in the Defense Supplemental Appropriations Act. The DIA awarded a contract to sole bidder, Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies. Yeah. The contractor was known as Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, AWASP. Now, what you must understand is that AATIP basically evolved out of that initial program. And that program apparently had far more, let's say, implications in regards to what he was studying. Meaning, this is when they get into Skinwalker Ranch and all of that stuff. And keep in mind, a lot of this started after the DIA visited Skinwalker Ranch and had weird experiences, to put it mildly, while at that ranch, and was using Skinwalker Ranch as somewhat of a laboratory in order to study the phenomena, believing that the phenomena here may coincide on some level with the phenomena in regards to UFOs and the stuff that people say they experience when they're engaging the craft. So right here, no issue here. This is straightforward. The contract goal was to study 12 technical areas: lift, propulsion, control, armament, signature reduction, materials, configuration, power generation, temporal translation, human effects, human interface, and technological or technology integration. Now, you tell me, what does that sound like to you? What does it sound like to you? I mean, it sounds like UFOs, but let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right. The first 26 reports were completed by late 2009. The Defense Appropriations Act for fiscal year of 2010 included, in addition to $12 million for the program, an additional 12 additional reports were produced. A total of 38 technical reports were delivered. The list is below. All of the reports were either classified or marked for official use only. Only a few have been released to the public. After a review in the late 2009, it was determined that the reports were of limited value to the DIA. The department terminated AATIP when funding for the program ended in 2012. Right here. Right here. In developing the reports and exploring how to create a center of expertise, the contract allowed for research drawn from a wide variety of sources, including reports on UAPs. However, the examination of UAP observation was not the purpose of AATIP. We included UFOs, but that wasn't the intended goal in its entirety. Look at some of these reports, though. Inertial electrostatic confinement fusion, advanced nuclear propulsion for manned deep space missions, pulsed high-power microwave technology. I mean, this stuff is astonishing. Positron aerospace propulsion, positrons, concepts for extracting energy from the quantum vacuum, that's 0-point energy, maverick inventor versus corporate inventor, biomaterials, metamaterials for aerospace applications, warp drive, dark energy, and the manipulation of extra dimensions, technological approaches to controlling external devices in absence of limb-operated interfaces, materials for advanced aerospace platforms, metallic glass, aerospace applications for programmable matter. Programmable matter. Think about that. Aneutronic fusion propulsion, cockpits in an era of breakthrough flight, cognitive limits on simultaneous control of multiple unmanned spacecraft, detection on and high-resolution trafficking of vehicles at hypersonic velocities, laser light craft, nanosatellites, magnetohydrodynamics, air-breathing propulsion, and power of aerospace applications, quantum computing and utilizing organic molecules and automation technology, quantum topology of negative energy states in the vacuum, ultracapacitors as energy and power storage devices, negative mass propulsion. Negative mass propulsion. That's typically used when people are talking about wormholes. Is there anything like that here? Oh, right here. Transversal wormholes, stargates, and negative energy and visibility cloaking. This is what they were studying. Sounds like UFOs. But the Pentagon is saying, no, this program wasn't specifically there to study UFOs. Okay. Now, Elizondo. Oh, one last point. Notice this part. It says, after review in late 2009, it was determined that the reports were of limited value to the Defense Intelligence Agency. The department terminated AATIP when the funding for the program ended in 2012. Okay. The director of AATIP says something different. Let's hear Elizondo.
As you know, there continues to be some confusion among national media and some reporters about AATIP versus AATIP. We have reported before about the $22 million, which went to AATIP, not AATIP. Can you clear this up for for the benefit of all about those two efforts. Did they coexist at the same time? Did one grow out of the other? Which one got the money, and what the setup was then, and what it became afterward?
Sure, George, I know there's continued confusion on this, and let me just state yet again, and this is probably the 1,000th time I've said this, okay? I was not part of AATIP, okay? I was part of AATIP. So any questions that regard AATIP, I'm really not qualified to answer. That was a predecessor of mine who was running that along with the aerospace company that everybody now knows was associated with it. AATIP was part in the beginning, grew out of the AATIP, but it became its own thing as time progressed. And my colleagues and I continued to run this effort all the way till the day I left 2017. And by the way, it continued after the day I left as well. There is also documentation, official government documentation, probably hasn't seen the light of day yet, that absolutely substantiates that. So again, I guess I understand there may be some confusion, but at this point, I've addressed this over and over again. Again, forgive me my frustration here, but it's something that continues to come up. And so, one more time for anybody who may have any questions, I was not part of AATIP. I was part of AATIP, and so anybody has questions about AATIP probably needs to direct those questions to somebody who was in that effort at the time.
So $22 million, Senator Reid and his colleagues secure that funding. It goes into a contract through the DIA. Bigelow Aerospace gets the money, and it studies not only UFOs, but a much wider array of strange phenomena that occur in proximity to UFOs. Don't really have an explanation. AATIP existed after the money for AATIP was pulled, and we don't know a lot about what AATIP did in terms of, there hasn't been a lot of release of documents produced by that might be coming. But the same can be true as AATIP. It kept going after the money for AATIP was pulled, and it studied the kinds of cases we're talking about now: national security, military encounter.
It did, and not necessarily the folks in AATIP were part of AATIP in its later years. AATIP became a very small, very niche, very nuanced capability that was run primarily through government people. Hopefully at some point the person who replaced me will be coming out in the public and be able to have additional conversation. Right now, I think most people just think I was the guy in AATIP, when in fact there were other people as well, and the program continued after I left, and that morphed into what we now know as a UAP task force.
All right, now I want to go back for just 1 second, because if you notice, I want you to listen to when he said it ended.
They have an explanation. AATIP.
At this point, I've addressed this over and over again. Again, forgive me my frustration here, but it probably hasn't seen the light of
I want to see when
the aerospace company that everybody now knows.
Right.
There continues to be some confusion among
I want to just nail down
some
the date,
reporters
because
about
again,
AATIP.
Notice the document and the statement that the Pentagon said it ended in 2012 when the funding ended. Elizondo, just one more time.
Versus AATIP. We have reported before about the $22 million for the benefit of all, about those out of the other.
Sure, George, I know there's continued confusion on this, and let me just state yet again, and this is probably the 1,000th time I've said this, okay? I was not part of AATIP. Okay, I was part of AATIP. So any questions that regard AATIP, I'm really not qualified to answer. That was a predecessor of mine who was running that along with the aerospace company that everybody now knows was associated with it. AATIP was part in the beginning, grew out of the AATIP, but it became its own thing as time progressed. And my colleagues and I continued to run this effort all the way till the day I left 2017. And by the way, it continued after the day I left as well.
2017. All right. So if Elizondo is saying it ended, or it kept going after he left in 2017, and I have to be honest, I don't know why you would end a program like that. I mean, ultimately, you're saying something is in our skies, something is going through our military installations, something is doing this and that. We have an interest in our military capability, not just ours, but all around the world. And we can't replicate the capability. We can't replicate the functionality. We don't necessarily know how and why they do what they do. At least that is open or on the overt level, meaning what we know of in the public in the way in the story that the media and the government is basically pushing with us. All right, fair enough. But if that's true, that also means that something is going through sensitive military areas. Something is basically buzzing planes and is in various lines. And none of these things, supposedly, you know what they are. How do you end a program that is supposed to assess threats in your airspace when you haven't assessed what they are, nor have you assessed any level of understanding of the capability and whatnot, unless you're not telling us something, which clearly they're not. But I'm just making the very basic point that based on what the media is putting out, based on the story that the government is going with, there's something in our skies. We don't know what they are. They're buzzing our military installations. We don't have the capability to basically have any control whatsoever in this context. And you're basically saying, yeah, we saw no need for the program, so we're just going to get rid of the program. That is more of a reason to expand the program, not to necessarily disband it, or for that matter, to make the program permanent, unless you want to just put it in the black, and the program operates entirely in the black, which may be what took place. I'm just making a point that the document that they put out is contradicted by the person who was the director of the program. Now, is Susan Go going to say that this is a typo? Is that a typo? Or is this another getting it wrong or just making confusion for the sake of confusion? Here's another interesting point. Right here. The UAP task force is not a continuation of AATIP, since the majority of the reporting about the UAP observation in recent years came from Navy aviators. The Department of Navy had been leading assessments of the UAP incursions into the Department of Defense training ranges and designated airspace since approximately 2018. Beginning in 2019, the Department of Defense undertook efforts to formalize the good work done by the Navy for the Department of Defense. Former Deputy Secretary Norquist approved the establishment of the UAP Task Force on August 4th, 2020. Right. But Elizondo is basically saying that the extension of AATIP is the UAP Task Force. The the Pentagon is saying specifically the UAP Task Force is not a continuation of AATIP. Are you confused much? Yes, I am. It is hard to understand why it is hard to understand a program where the majority of the content for the program supposedly was already public. And I get that the test or the lab work and everything else or the research and the reports were basically in the black. I mean, these guys were studying anti-gravity, studying wormholes, and dark matter and warp drive. So yeah, on some level, I can understand it, I guess. But from the standpoint of the program itself, they're saying basically two different things. And look, this confusion had been there prior. It doesn't quite make sense that the program would just stop. Also, Elizondo didn't even come out public until Trump was in office. So this wasn't releases during the Obama era. When he became public, that was like 2017. So between the two, he seems far more consistent in the story that he's giving. I have no idea what they're talking about with the 2012 stuff. And maybe that's something that will be explained, but Elizondo is saying something entirely different. And again, from the standpoint of when he became public and when this stuff hit the papers and everything else, he left and came public for something like that. It wasn't something where he was just kind of on icefall at the time. He was actually working in the program. So I don't know if the Pentagon is putting out a typo. I don't know if the Pentagon is trying to be intentionally confusing. I don't know what the Pentagon is trying to do. If indeed their goal was to clear up confusion, this did not do it. As for the purpose and the goal of AATIP, look, it seems that AATIP, regardless of whether it was started with the explicit intent of studying UFOs or not, that seemed to be what it was doing. And regardless of what the Pentagon is saying here, that little engine that could definitely was studying UFOs. I mean, the question becomes, when did it end? Did it end at all? Is UAP Task Force basically a continuation of, and maybe Elizondo is not being literal here. Maybe he's not being literal in the sense of, okay, the AATIP ended, but the UAP Task Force started, and one bleeds into the other. I don't know how literal he's being with it, but they're basically saying somewhat of two different things. And again, from the standpoint of when the program ended, that was during, or I would say Elizondo came out during Trump when he went over into To the Stars Academy. And at the time where he went to the Stars Academy, he left AATIP to do that. That was during Trump's presidency. That wasn't during Obama's. So, no clue what the Pentagon is doing with this. None. And look, if I'm wrong on this, I will do a video saying, hey, I was entirely wrong. The Pentagon was right about X or Y. But at this point, Elizondo was very clear that the program ended in 2017. And it seems like that's when it ended. But this document just adds more confusion to the mix. Not to mention, if they got that part wrong, what does it say about the part in regards to what the purpose of the program was? Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all. I mean, this is a problem. When this stuff is in the black, it's like, how do you know what's true and how do you validate reality when all of that stuff is in the black and you can only go about what you're told? And then you have somebody else saying, hey, that's not true. Well, then which one do you believe and how do you believe it? Well, at the very least, with the thing for 2017, we do have Lou going out at that specific time when that stuff became public. So at the very least, we have some ability to verify the coming out point or the ending point. But according to Elizondo, it kept going. I mean, the question is, did it keep going in the black? We don't know. But the Pentagon is not necessarily making this clear. And for whatever reason, they can't get their story straight on this program. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all.